get a timeline on these. In a lot of the books, they try to do it post Alexander the Great, in which Alexander the Great pretty much followed those roads. Did you ever get a timeline when they really started those roads coming from China, India, Middle East, Africa? So, and that because that's so important in the revelation of the world and how the Greeks got it, and the Italians fashioned their culture off the Greeks, and they became the peddlers to the white people because they were closer in color to the Germans, and that greed brought them back down into those areas.
It's hard to distinguish when the Silk Roads were established because people from Africa have been going in and out of Asia for ages. And that's why they're still there. In pockets of Asia, the Africans are still there. There's people who look just like us sitting in Asia in little villages all over the place. I mean, I'm saying for what I've seen. I've been with them. And I was talking earlier with Mother Dole when I was in Asia. I was in Indonesia. It's the heart of Asia. And we took a boat, car, all this stuff to get up to this village. And there was a tribe called the Batek tribe. There was a European family, a couple in a boat with us. When they saw the European family, the Batek tribe, they went inside their huts. They're like, okay, here they come. Because the people there, they treat them like pets. You know, the European tourists go there and they throw food at them and they treat them like pets. But when they saw us, they were more inviting to us because I don't think they ever saw like African or African-American tourists go visit them. And there was the humanity that they had with us. There was a camaraderie that they had with us. They look in, like, what tribe are you from? They had that kind of look because they saw that I looked like them. And again, the point is that we've been going in and out of Asia for years, so it's hard to establish when the Silk Road was established. The Europeans started calling it the Silk Road because they found out about it later on in the Middle Ages. Well, really, Marco Polo.
Yeah, well, that's where Alexander the Great, he went right up to those routes.
Right, but it wasn't called the Silk Route, and they called it that when Marco Polo found out about it. But yeah, Alexander the Great, he was going in there through the same route, going around the Caucasus Mountains and all that. So it's been around for years.
Right. Yeah. So I was just trying to get a timeline, or maybe I've been looking at as maybe calling it the wrong thing.
Right. Right. Because again, I think the Silk Road, they didn't call it that at first. But again, I don't know what languages they were using when the Egyptians and the Africans were going in and out of Asia first.
Now, with all the stuff that you touch on so much stuff.
Yeah.
How do you organize?
Yeah.
I mean, because
Oh man, the reason everything is in the film it's a whole gumbo of stuff. It's because I wanted to market this to a younger crowd, and young people have this MTV, BET mentality where they like music videos and everything has to be very fast with them because their attention span it wanes. So if you look at Hidden Colors 1 and 2, you notice everything is quick. There's always a visual hitting you all the time so people won't get bored, and I did that by design. So that format works. Just putting a whole bunch of stuff out there, not giving you a chance to wane away from the information.
But it opens it up to so many different areas, and the interest isn't just caught like you just stand with one story.
Exactly.
There's so many different stories that the viewer can go in so many different directions because you're bound to be inspired by something.
Exactly. You got to watch it at least 10 times to catch all the stuff.
And then they keep multitasking to train yourself to be able to, you think, oh, no, this distract me. No, it will force you to either get with it or get left.
Exactly.
I lost count on how many times I watched both of them. I lost count at this point, bro.
It's so big.
Yes, it is.
That we need, I think that as Black people, we really need to focus on what those Moors did.
And you know what? Before Hidden Colors, a lot of people didn't know about the Moors. Yeah, I was shocked. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know. They're like, Moors, who are they? They didn't know.
Or
about
at least
that.
rejected it because when you tell folks about the glorious history, they can't believe
They can't believe it. Exactly.
You making that up.
Yeah, when you tell them, they think you're exaggerating. This is why we had a lot of images. We showed them the statues and the paintings and the name of the paintings, so nothing can be refuted as far as that.
Because it's so crazy because the science that the Moors brought to the Portuguese is what Henry the Navigator brought right back to them to come back to enslavement. And that Spanish Inquisition and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's so deep, and I don't think it's really been nobody focused on that piece and the contributions that the Moors played and how it was used in reverse in order to enslave them. I mean,
This is real deep stuff. I've been to the Inquisition Museum in Spain, and they destroyed a lot of stuff. I'm surprised that some of the stuff that survived is still there, but they destroyed a lot of stuff that the Moors contributed as far as just the documents, because a lot of documents in Spain were written in Arabic. We talked about that in Hidden Colors too. A lot of the medical journals were written by the Moors and written in Arabic, and they destroyed a lot of it and just rewrote them for themselves and contributed things like that to Michelangelo and Da Vinci. And just like we said, where did Da Vinci and Michelangelo get their knowledge from?
Who were their teachers?
These guys, they just didn't pop up knowing all this stuff, which they like to pretend they did. But they were taught this.
Right.
So this is real heavy stuff.
I've watched Hidden Colors at least 4 or 5 times. And every time I watch it, I gain a new message. There was a book that you mentioned in Hidden Colors 2 about Columbus. It was Columbus, his life, his remains, his wife, or something like that. So I went to the library to get it. Now they didn't have it. We have one major library downtown. So they ordered it through Interlibrary Loan. And just before I went on vacation, I went to the library to get the book. And so the lady tells me, she says, well, I hope you have some strong arms. And I know what she's talking about. She comes back with a box with 3 huge books that I could not carry. I had to get the guard to come and carry those books, and it was 3 in this book you're talking about, and to carry them out to my car. And then I couldn't get them out my car. I had to go get my son. And he said, what kind of books are these? And there's all on Christopher Columbus. Now, I haven't had a chance to read them because I had to go away and come back, but I do plan to. Were you aware that there was so much history there in those 3 huge books?
And not only that, they got a lot of stuff at the Vatican. All of just big volumes of stuff in libraries in Europe, just volumes of stuff.
Yeah, that was really something.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so there's so much hidden history, Brother Armand.
Yeah, I think that he raised an important question and point centered around chronology.
Yes.
And it helps to set up some type of logic in terms of how we can go backwards, so-called backwards in time. Because I think that we, at this so-called modern time, each individual groups are trapped in time warps.
Yeah.
I think that is what we are, because we can name ourselves based on the conqueror telling us, this is who you are. This is what you should believe as opposed to what you should know. There's a difference between believing something and knowing something. And if we know something about chronology, we can make logical steps to see the sequence of how we got to be where we are today through this concept of conquering, the conquering of the mind, the body. And we've lost 2 significant things in our miseducation, and that is the idea of a consciousness and an unconscious, which everything is stored in the unconscious. The unconscious does not forget. That we can go into our dream world and dream up all kinds of images that movie stars today play out in Star Wars, and etc., which is nothing but a repeat of ancient Africa. If humans began to play out certain kind of ideas in Africa, would we want to go to that spot to see how things began in terms of how the mind, the science of mind was developing among our people in a tropical area of the world that became the Garden of Eden? In order to be able to have peace, you got to be in some type of nature-promoting life as opposed to death. And when we get into the divisions among ourselves, we're pointing fingers at each other because we're in these groups. Instead of thinking holistic, that the whole world is Africa. And once we begin to understand that secret, we can bring those threads together and create wholeness. Because when you say Chinese, who were the beginners of the Chinese? And it goes back to Anu. And we can get into the Latin word Anu, meaning year and all this kind of stuff. But once you get that slender thread, or once you get to the point in the center of a circle, then you're balanced. And that's what we need. We need balance among our scholars who are at each other's, as well as the youth who are watching the elders go at each other. So we have to have some notion of the science of the mind.
And that's very interesting about the chronology, because the thing is, we're presented history and the chronology is off. For example, whenever we see something on TV about Egyptians, they always show what the modern Egyptians did. So everybody's there looking like Arabs. And we know they didn't look like that because the Arabs, there was no such thing as an Arab back then.
Right.
So the chronology is very important. And also about us getting back to our nature. We come from a tropical environment. You notice that most slave rebellions that were successful were in the Caribbean. There's two reasons for that. Number one, the Caribbean is limited, so you have a cousin here and a cousin on the other side of the island. You guys still have a language compatibility there, and you can communicate. Number two, it's tropical, so we were in our original nature, so that made us fight harder. Some of us we remember the long, hot summer riots of the 60s. A lot of people are trying to figure out, why were we rioting in the 60s, in the summer? When they say that black folks act a fool in the summer, no, we get back to our nature in the summer. We wake up, that unconscious mind kicks in, like, wait a minute, we're being oppressed, let's fight our way up out of this. So that's very true about our nature and how we got to get back to our nature and how the unconscious mind taps back up and control our actions. Go, sister.
That's what I was going to say too, in terms of the melanin.
Yes.
And the neuromelanin.
Yes.
Because the neuromelanin is the connection that takes us to the heavenly parts of our existence, how we were able to chart the heavens and build the pyramid, just based on that neuromelanin connection to the energies that exist, that we all are a part of, that whole oneness. And we don't seem to know that it's a oneness.
Trying to teach the history, the chronology is so important, and so is the geography.
Yes.
And you still got teachers who won't even subscribe to the fact that Egypt is in Africa. And even I fought that battle for so many years, with teachers not being willing to accept that fact because the textbooks show Africa is in the Middle East. And so that's the way the textbooks are set up, and that's the way they teach it. And unfortunately, our children are being given a set of lies that they believe because my teacher said so, so it must be true. It's in the book, so it must be real. And it hasn't changed.
We talked about that in Hidden Colors too, that whole myth that Egypt and Africa is somehow separated. And what historians try to do is make it seem like the Sahara Desert is this barrier that keeps language, science, and culture from reaching each other. And we just simply point out that the Nile River is a superhighway. You can go in and out of Upper Africa and Lower Africa just like that. I've been on the Nile River, so we have to teach our children this because they know this. The people who are teaching us this, they know. They're just trying to cover it up to keep the inferiority complex going with us. So this is why it's important that we, us, get out here and teach our people this stuff.
Thinking of teaching, I just heard a discussion last week, I think in Nigeria, where there were some women talking about bringing housewives of Nigeria. And I'm just saying, and what it says is about the teaching of the consciousness and the kind of history we got to take forward needs many everyday people at ground zero, which is not happening. I often say education doesn't start at the red brick house door, it starts at the community door. And while we have, and it's a double-edged fight, while we have to hold the institutional and structural buildings that create the racism and continue to manifest it, we got to take the task right here in our neighborhood, folks who are not dealing. I mean, even look at when we think about some of our sisters and brothers, the kind of clothing they're wearing, like off their pan, we should be challenging some of these businesses that are selling them. But we're not doing that, and slowly but surely people begin to digress away to think, well, our history is gone and not connected to our reality today. And if we don't amplify it as much as we hear all the other stuff being amplified, then shame on us.
Absolutely.
And that's part of what your movie does is that, okay, so we see this movie, we like it and stuff, and then the question comes back to us, what are we prepared to do? And it's an individual question as much as it is a collective one.
And that's why at the end of the movies, we offer solutions and we try to give people ideas on what to do to motivate. Because just getting information, that's one thing, but we do need to know some strategies. And we try to present something so people can get out there and get motivated.